Hello gamers, Powered Heal here, and today we're going to be talking about AQ20 Loot Prio. We're going to be doing it on the Rogue using Atlas Loot. So we did one like this for ZG, and we talked a little bit about the books already, but I want to actually delve into some of the items. I have made BIS guides for each of the classes and kind of like the almost BIS, the BIS, items to look out for, catch-up items. So a lot of those videos do incorporate items from this list, but I kind of want to just go through AQ20 in case you're somebody who's caught up with the game and you're just kind of looking for what items in here might be useful to me. You know, like maybe you have most things, but you don't have everything. Maybe you're looking for purely BIS items. So that's going to be basically the intent of this video. We're going to cover it from the perspective of all classes. I'll mention things that are kind of decent for all classes. And yeah, we'll start. I think the way we're going to open this is we're going to go right to the end first, just for one item at least. And if you're looking for, if you're looking into this video to see if you're going to miss any BIS items from AQ20, if you're pretty much kind of like fully BISed or close coming in, then there's not really that much that you are going to be missing most likely. Instead, it's going to come down to, I would say, 3 major items. And the first one is the head of Asarion here drops a neck when you turn it in. So the head drops every time you complete the instance from the last boss. Then you turn it in for one of these 4 necks, and this healing neck is widely considered one of basically the best healing neck up until this point, outside the one from Cthulhu, which has a similar mechanic where you turn in his eye and you get a healing neck. But that one is much harder to get because lots of other classes want it. Not as many classes want this because the other necks just aren't as good comparatively. So that's something about this neck, and it's pretty good for like all the healing classes basically. Okay, then the next item I want to talk about is where are they here? The Gloves of the Dark Wisdom. So these are kind of good on quite a few healers as well. If you don't have some slots, like they need the glove slot for set pieces and stuff like that. But if you're not one of those classes where you have like a really good glove slot like Paladin that's like probably pretty easy to get, then these are become like a pretty decent option. I mean, they're even good on Paladin if you don't have the glove slot, but I wouldn't really bother to get these. I would just try and get the ZG gloves. So these are very good. And then Gauntlets and New Life are pretty decent, but kind of like in a similar, I would say the Dark Wisdom Gauntlets are better. Okay, and then the final item here is, well, I'll do a couple more. So the next item is the Treads of the Wandering Nomads. This is kind of like a pretty decent boot option if you don't have Boots of Pure Thought on your character. It's just strictly all healing stats, intellect, spirit, and then actual healing power. The drop rate in this is pretty low, but it does drop sometimes, so something to keep in mind there. And then I just wanted to look at one of the trash items here, the antenna here. This is good for priests. It's pretty much the BIS wand in the game, but it's only BIS by like very small margin. There's very comparable wand that drops from BRD coffers now. As a phase 5, I'll actually just go to it really quick since it's not really a big deal to do that. This wand right here, Wand of Eternal Light. So yeah, I wouldn't like go crazy trying to get the new wand from AQ20. It is BOE, so people sell it, but it's very expensive right now, I believe. So just some notes on that. But yeah, it's kind of like the Cliff Notes. If if you're already kept up and you just want to see if there's some decent items for you, that's probably what you're going to be looking at. And the rest of this stuff is mostly going to be probably if you're newer. But we're just kind of going to go through the whole gamut here and look at everything, right? So first item, this is more of a caster item, but it could be used on like a Paladin, I guess, if you're really fresh geared. I personally would probably select the robes from Strat over this, or maybe I would just grab the Dragon Scale Protector chest, like the red one. That's like 60 some healing and then some fire resist, but this is an option, I guess, right? The belt over here, this belt is like, it wants to be good, but the thing is there's a belt from AQ or from Dire Maul East from the last boss, which is just strictly better than it. So it's kind of hard to justify getting that belt. and it's really easy to get the Dharma East belt is the problem. So it's also cloth, so any class can use it like this belt. So yeah, just not the best. These are turn-in items. They're very similar to the ZG turn-in items. You need a certain reputation. You also need kind of like they're like idols to some degree. They're like little things that drop in the raid, and you have to turn them in with these items in order to get the actual like real item for your character. So we'll just click on a few of these. So the priest has a decent cloak here. It's nothing crazy though. It's pretty much outclassed by a lot of the ZG items, and obviously something like Eye of the Wild. And the 3 set isn't anything to write home about. It's not even for priest or holy priest, right? So don't need to worry about that. Then Paladin. The Paladin cloak is honestly terrible. It's basically just like, there's no healing on it at all. They kind of completely misread the needs of the class there. So just not much else to say. And you can see the set bonus here is just not really that great. 20% chance to regain only 100 mana when you cast a judgment. The main problem with this is that even if you were trying to make this into a set where you were farming with it, right? Because I farm my own runes on my Paladin. And I would maybe indulge the set bonus, but the problem is it actually takes one of your weapon slots. Like you have to use, like your weapon slot is a one-handed sword if you use the set, so it's basically impossible to actually like use this bonus to farm or anything like that without being stuck with the one-handed sword. So that's obviously not good. So yeah, Paladin set, pretty mediocre. Let's look at the Shaman Cloak. So the Shaman Cloak is just, again, pretty mediocre. If you're going elemental, this might be an option for you to consider, but realistically outside of that, it is quite poor. And yeah, they even have strength on it for some reason, so that's interesting. The Druid Cloak, this is like one of those kind of, just throw the kitchen sink at it items where they put every stat in the game. I mean, it is a Druid item, so I kind of get it a bit, but obviously not very great for healing, so that's something to keep in mind. And then these are the rings, right? So looking at the rings, no healing on this one. And again, the set bonus doesn't come through, so basically just kind of trash. Then the Paladin one is a little bit of plus healing, but again, nothing to write home about, and the set bonus is bad, so it doesn't make any sense there. The Shaman one, again, same thing, very little amount of plus healing and some weird stats, more like a hybrid for kind of like an enhanced / elemental set more than anything else. And then we have the Band of Unending Life here, which is again just kind of like a mess stat-wise, so I'm not counting this one as being very good. And we will move on to the next boss. So we're not going to cover these for it's the same, obviously. The bosses drop multiple types of the different tokens here. There's different things that they'll drop later on we'll talk about. But, so it's not really an epic here that we're interested in. Something like this is like okay, but not great, right? Could be okay for Paladin. Like this is if you really, really have no gear. It's more of a caster item, okay? Same thing with this. Like you'd have to be naked to want this. Basically, we talked about the boots already. Those are pretty good for sure. Yeah, so there's that. Then let's talk about the Mome item. So this is an interesting item. I think it's probably arguably a little bit better than the Zilean headdress, maybe. It's like very, very close, I would say. I rate usually like 1% crit around, like 20-ish healing. So it's basically kind of the equivalent there. It has more intellect, has a bit more spirit. I think it sort of looks the same, or maybe it looks a little different. It definitely does look a little different, so if you like the look of it, I guess there's that. But it's really more of a mage item, like kind of like a catch-up mage item than anything else, so, I wouldn't, like, chastise a paladin for rolling on this, but it's just easier things for you to get, and I would leave this for the mages, honestly. So then there's this. This is another potential maybe item for the paladin, right? But realistically, again, probably just better off using the AV offhand and easier to get as well since it's guaranteed, and you can get Exalted with AV pretty quickly. So there's that. These just not really that great. Most classes have way better than this in some form, right? Then Cloak of the Savior. This is just inferior to most of the ZG cloaks, so again, not really that great, I would say. This honestly gets beaten out by even the Dire Maul East gloves when we're talking about pure healing, so not a fan there. And these are obviously no good for Paladin healing. And I think that is basically... we're going to cover some of these. So I'm going to get into the weapons here. So the Priest weapon is actually not bad, especially if you compare this or use this with something like the AV offhand. The problem is just that it takes Exalted to get, and it's actually kind of a pain to do that. I feel like it's harder to do that with the AQ20 faction than it is to do with the ZG faction, right? So it's going to take... I think you have to do more runs too. I guess you can turn in like text and stuff maybe, but it's just going to be a bit more of a pain. So I really wouldn't recommend this. I would probably I just stuck with Benediction. I would get Augur Staff from AQ40. I don't think this is worth the trouble, but it is definitely like one of the decent weapon items at least that come out of here. So if you do get Exalted, if you are planning on doing that, this is a decent item for sure. It's basically going to be, in a similar ballpark to the Augur Staff, but I believe worse overall, but at least it's not like that bad. Then, the Druid one here is basically like a Feral Mace, essentially with a little bit of, it's like a hybrid obviously, so not great for healing. And then the Paladin one, there's no plus healing on it at all. It's just insane that they would ever make this weapon. And the Shaman one is like okay, but it's not even better than Jindu's Hexer from ZG, right? So again, a lot of investment for very little in terms of your actual return on the item. And my thing is, you'll notice me mentioning in a lot of videos like this, I like to point out when something is a high investment, because I feel like especially if you're a more kind of casual player, and obviously this channel is kind of like a guide making channel, so for people who are just new to healing in general, I mean, it's for everybody, but I assume a lot of those people are probably consuming my content, and that means that they may not have like a ton of time to play the game, and if you don't have a ton of time to play the game already, even if you do really have a ton of time to play the game, nothing can kind of burn you out quicker sometimes than doing like a grind, especially for like a very mediocre reward, right? I did advocate for people doing the rank 14 grind if it wouldn't be like mentally breaking for them, because the rewards can be so good on some of the classes. I did it for some of the classes. I didn't do it for like priests and stuff like that. But for some of the classes, I did definitely mention it being really strong. In the case of like something like this, like a healer grinding out Exalted, Cenarian Circle Rep, I just can't see it, especially not for something like the Shaman Mace. So I just always want to give you guys the heads up on that. And people might be like, oh, it's lazy or whatever, but at the end of the day, if you burn yourself out doing stuff that's just terrible and not fun for you, then you're not even playing the game, right? So what is the point at that point? This stuff is pretty garbage, right? Nothing to really see here. All this stuff is pretty bad. This is the Wasp boss. Again, nothing really to see here. This is a little bit, it's kind of like a little bit better than some of the ZG one-hands, but not really, right? It's like, it's actually kind of close to the ZG blue one-hand in some cases even. It's actually worse than the Jindu's weapon, which I don't even understand how that's possible. I guess it's because it's magical effects and healing, not just healing. But yeah, for a healer, it's just really, really bad. So I wouldn't even bother there. Very uninspired helmet, just tons of good helmets you can get at this point. Just the ZG helmet existing blows us out of the water. These are kind of like okay, honestly, for a shaman, or potentially even a paladin. If you are super fresh, you have nothing else to use there, so that's something. But Something like this, just terrible for Paladin, no plus healing. This ring is actually, it's sort of decent. I give this ring, this is like a decent Paladin item, I would say. I wouldn't quite say it's good. I think I'd rather probably just run the ZG2 set at the end of the day. But realistically, if we assume around, like, again, 20% healing for a crit, we have very comparable healing to some of the other rings in its class, right? And we have 3 mana per 5, 9 int. Stats are decent, so this one's okay. But really, again, nothing to really write home about. And we'll go to the last boss. We already covered a lot of the loot here. But, so, again, these are bad, right? These are bad, not going to be useful for you. These are good, we already talked about this. Basically useful on all classes, except for kind of like Paladin already has a way better gloves. And I guess Druid has really good set gloves, and, Shaman obviously uses tier a lot of the time. So, pretty much mostly a priest item. But, then this can be like a Druid item if you don't have your good gloves already. This is for basically, caster damage. Like, you could pick this up as a Paladin, but people would probably look at you sideways. It's not, like, terrible by any means. This would probably be better than what I have on my Paladin just being a green, but barely so. Because like I said again, I rate, around like 1% crit to be around 20-ish healing, so you're basically gaining like 16 stat over a 60 healing green, which isn't really the best. And yeah, so this has hit on it, right? So obviously we're not really looking to have anything to do with that, and outside of the neck here, that's basically all the items. So yeah, AQ20, I think it's kind of, this is not anything to do with AQ, this is for the Gates quest, by the way, so I was just checking to make sure. Yeah, so outside of the books here, there's not a lot from AQ20, just covering the antenna here one last time so people can see it, but yeah, there's really not much there. And I guess this is a kind of like an okay item, but it's going to be really rare for it to drop anyway. And there's a lot of better options by this point. Like the ZG Helm is just probably better than this. So, yeah. Overall, I'd say AQ20 way more disappointing than ZG in terms of healing loot. But you do get the books from it, so there's kind of a little bit of compensation there. And the healer neck, it's nice in this case because it's guaranteed. Unlike the neck in ZG from Jindu, right? So you'll probably have a way easier time getting the neck. And that slot tends to be like a problematic slot. So getting it easily filled is kind of a big deal, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, that is basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And if this helped you at all, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I will talk to you guys next time.